Hey people, how's it going? Seems like the cure to Jesse's addiction has left you all struggling with your own addictions to Jesse. So there was no good way out of this, huh? Um, Either Jesse suffers or you all suffer from the lack of Jesse suffering. Um, in any case, you'll be happy to hear that Dojo Talks is coming back this weekend, and we will be talking addiction. That will be the next episode of Dojo Talks. So hopefully on Saturday, we'll free you from the shakes and aches that are currently plaguing you. In the meantime, I'm here to do some really slow chess. Really, really slow. All right, let's set up position number 94. Get rid of all this stuff. Get back to my endgame grind. That was really rough losing on Endgame Sensei last week to Kostya and pretty rough. Jesse asking, did you sense a blunder? Yeah, shouldn't have traded that rook, huh? Yeah, shouldn't have traded that. Anyway. This position comes from V. Kuchuk in 1953, supposedly. It's white to play. Here, white to win must do more than merely capture the queen rook pawn and form a passed pawn. For without the aid of the white king, no pawn will queen. In other words, even if black's pawn were off the board, you couldn't win this position by just putting your knight on the queen side with the pawns. To get the pawns through, you would have to also bring your king to this side of the board. Now, how do you do that with two passed pawns from black over here? Gosh. So white's mission demands a cunning knight maneuver. Picking up black's king-knight pawn without dropping the queenside pawns. The plan unfolds as follows. Whoops, whoa, hang on, sorry folks. It was like not on legal moves or something. Okay, it starts like this. Knight here. Knight here. King here. Knight check. This is not Viktor Kupraychek, though. This is V. Kuchuk, a composer who I don't know as a chess player. Okay, king to rook 3, defending this pawn, not coming out and losing it. Kuchuk, if anyone wants to look up this person and tell us about their bio. Be lovely to know more about Mr. Kuchuk or Madam Kuchuk. King here. This king's got to, it's got to back up and lose this pawn. Anyway, that's simple enough. Yum. Okay, that's a start. The start there wasn't too hard yet. Here. Why this way and not this way? We'll have to find out. Check here, check here. Wow, putting him on a shorter leash, huh? Now we're going to have to waste a move with our king so that they back off of this, right? Hey, Baguette. Hey, Menchik. King to knight 2. Now we come here. So that's why the knight wasn't here. It was here so that it could advance to this position one row further up. Nice. Very nice. Poor king has nothing to do but go to rook 2. Now we're going to waste another move with our king. Oh, brutal. 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 I did, John, yeah. I have not yet figured out who actually won the tournament. I have no idea who won the April Mega Rapid. I haven't had time to sit down and redo all the points in the cross table because there were so many cheaters. It's annoying. Dreary work. Okay, king to rook 1. Man, he's all the way back in this miserable corner. Poor fool. Okay, I don't think we can push him back much further. I mean, I don't think advancing the pawns and taking control of these squares helps too much. Then black just starts doing this, and it's a stalemate. There were 5 of them. One of them got banned mid-tournament, which kept them from continuing their nasty run. Anyway, let's see what white's going to do. At some point, this knight's got to run. So if we go knight to king 4, king here, knight takes, king here, knight backwards this way, takes here, knight here, we defend the pawn. Then we can take this with our king and then head back over. Wait, it's clear. We're winning here now. Wow. Okay. I think we can see the end at this point. Yep, the knight goes. King rushes towards our pawns. We catch this. Come here and now run back towards our second pawn. Whew. Saved and then takes and then wins. I don't know what that is, David, but say hi to her for me, I guess, if Chelsea's a person. I don't know what it has to do with sorry me. Okay. Okay, so let's just watch it again to absorb it. We're going to play it through it once more time. Chelsea is a soccer club. Okay. Whoop-de-doo soccer club. Takes this. Forward. Way to move. Take more space. Go get it. Come back. Actually pretty easy. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Numbers 95 and 99. What? All right, is he going to skip 97 and 98? No, I don't know. Numbers 95 and 99 are two endgame positions which should have arisen in the game Schlensker Hund, Frankfurt, 1955. We'll give a highly instructive analysis by Dr. Irve. So this position is going to be like so, white to play. The Endgame viewer tournament, Arusha, is going to be on Friday. It's going to be on Friday. Okay. King to knight 3. King bishop 3. This move here is going to be our first example of Zugzwang. For this position here, we can see that if either these two pawns are frozen by the white king, so if you ignore one side of the board, just cover it like that on the queen side, cover all this with your hand, then just look at the king and these two pawns. The king is freezing the pawns, but he can't go capture them because, like, if the king comes this way to eat this pawn can advance, and you can't take without letting this one go. So if you go this way and the pawn goes, you have to head back this way. And it can't keep going because you'll take it, right? But you can't go win this pawn because when you eventually come here, this one will come, and if you come here, it'll push past. So in this situation here, the king and the pawns are freezing each other. The pawns can't advance without getting captured, and the king can't attack them. The king can do this like step back thing, but then, and then the pawns can't advance because here, catches it and catches the other one. So the pawns are frozen by the king. The king can't take the pawns, but the king can move back and forth. So the king can't get zugzwanged over here. The king can always lose a move as necessary. When white plays knight c7, this side of the board becomes a zugzwang for black, because if the king goes, knight takes, pawn defends a3. There's nothing better than to have your opponent in Zugzwang. This position shows a classic example of Volkswagen. Unterwasser, Taschenlampen, Batterienverkäufer. Yeah. That's an underwater. I don't know English. That's somebody who sells batteries for underwater flashlights. All right, so black moves the king back this way, because if you advance towards the white pawns, knight c7 puts the king and pawn in Zugzwang. Very nice. Very nice. All right. So now the question is, does this knight have any epic maneuvers like in the last one? My last name, Pleefers, comes from Prussia. That's right. So what can this knight do? Knight c5, king d5. Where would we dream of putting this knight to put a Zugzwang on the opponent? Anybody see a genius knight maneuver? I don't see it yet. I mean, I see the knight moving around all over the place in my head, but I don't yet see it getting somewhere specific. E7, yeah, that would be a good spot to get to. I guess I'm asking two different questions at the same time, right? One question is, does anybody see a genius maneuver? The other question is, does anybody see where we should try to get? It would have to start by going through c5 for sure. The question is, where are we trying to get? Pleefers, I don't think it's good for white to trade this pawn for this pawn, but that's a very good question. We should try to know the answer to that question. So let's just imagine these pawns off the board for a second and see if white would win. It would go knight d3, king b5, knight c5, king b5, knight d3. Then the opponent could play like king c4. We can't move the knight, we can't move the pawn. We can go king g2, king g3, and they can go king b5, king c4. Feels like a draw to me. Maybe somebody else followed that. If we take these two pieces off the board, right, and white goes knight c5, king b3, king b5, knight d3, defending the pawn. I feel like black can just move the king back and forth on those squares, and white can't make any progress. Knight c5, king d5, knight b3, king c4, knight d4. The reason not to do that, Thali, is that black is going to capture your knight after you do it. Fisher Seb, I would imagine if you go king f3 that black's going to play h4, right? To tighten the noose of how far your king and knight can move. And yeah, Laurent, in your line coder future, I think is correct that instead of taking the knight, black could take the pawns with the king and trade everything off to a draw. That would look like knight c5, king here, 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 knight check, king here, a4, king b4, securing the final trade. King f3, h4, king g2, exclam, f4. You could, Julio, but black is going to move the king back to c6 instead of c4, right? As before. So king g2, looking for black to have a move that they can play. Knight check. And they won't go forward and get zugzwang. They'll come back again, like last time. And we'll have to move the knight somewhere. And now we get into some wandering that I don't think we have prepared, right? Maybe move the knight to the king side, yeah. Okay, I'm going to back up. Okay. When the knight's on b3, I'm not sure how you'll play a4. Black will probably just take it with their b pawn. But the other problem with going knight c5 to b3 is that black can play king d5 to c4 and bring their king in. Yeah, this looks very tough. All right, let's just look at the answer maybe. I mean, here's what I considered doing. I could go here, here, here. So if the king heads forward, I've got knight d6. So the king comes here again, then I check. Here. Now I could get as far as f7, because if the king comes this way, I have this again. This is how far I got with with the maneuver that I came up with. So here, 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 and we have to always be able to answer the move king c4 by attacking this pawn. So we have to always have access to c7, d6, or d4 for the knight, really. And not really d4, because the king on c4 will just take us. So it always has to be within range of these squares. So now on king e6, maybe like here. Tolly, now your knight went from d7 to d8. So now I've gone really, really far away, but you'll notice that if the king makes a beeline to b3, I can still get to this square in time. So this position, what would our opponent do? Maybe something like king e5? I mean, I don't think they want to sack this pawn or this pawn just into our king's hand so easily. So I think king e5 would basically be the main remaining move here. We could look at this, but it seems like the knight catches that pawn and the king's got the room to win this endgame now. So let's focus on king e5. Super Baguette, we're probably trying to win because it's very easy to draw. Excuse me. A4 takes push. Yeah, the pawn can queen with check, but the black king is close enough to capture it when it queens. So I don't see anything for white to do here. We maneuvered our knight somewhere. But I don't see how we could do anything really from this position. I mean, this would be like really only the only different thing to do. Here, here, here. What on earth? I won! Wait. What just happened? PB Corporeal, you think it's again swapping sides with the king and knight, right? The knight coming all the way over to h6. What the heck? I was ready to give up on this, and then I just played some more moves. Okay, king h4. I mean, f4 is very logical, right? Because moving the king this way is never anything. So king e5 here. I mean, I think they're going to push this. I take this. They come here. Look, I've got this knight g4 move, which I think somebody in chat thought I was going to do. But I realized that I could just, check and capture it. So I'm bringing my king towards f1. And now that I've dealt with both kingside pawns, I don't need to save both of these, only one of them. So if this pawn goes, we'll play check here, takes here. Now we just need to get to like c6, g4. Boom. Look at our knight fly. Yes! Now that's a knight for you. I assume this is winning. I didn't double check it, but in my experience, this is. If the king comes this way, takes him a lot of moves to get to our knight. And then you can send the knight over here. And if the king goes to c4, you've got this. Good luck. You're so far away. And if the king goes to try and trap the knight, they can just come out here. Wow. Okay, let's see what the answer is in the book. Knight, bishop, 5, king, queen, 4. King, bishop 4. What? Okay, white plays this. No comment about it. H4. Knight here, king here. Okay. You guys are all congratulating me, but it might have all been wrong. Okay. It says a very important position. It would appear that white has no winning chances. Black intends to approach like this. And the white king is tied by the passed pawns. The player with white gave a number of variations demonstrating the possibility of a win in this position. We will give the main line. King takes, pawn runs. So now the knight's going to run. The king can't get there in time. What is this variation? Okay, he played knight to king 4. Pawn to rook 7. Why is black playing pawn to rook 7? That's not necessary. Just go. Oh, because here there's still not... No. Oh yeah, I don't have to go here till the pawn moves. Yes! Okay. Okay. Right, Niza. Or Nize. The knight goes with the pawn. The white king follows the black king. Okay. So he goes here, here. Okay, but unfortunately, it's not clear how white is to achieve his goal if black does not try to win the queen rook pawn, but instead marks time with his king. So pawn here, knight here, king here, king here. Sorry, guys. Just trying to find the moves here. Okay, king to king 4. Okay, he says instead of going after the pawn, just go here. King here, king here. What is this defense? And if the king goes here, he goes here, here, here. He's switching sides now. Huh, that's weird. It's really wrong. Let me try and fix that. Thanks. I thought I set that correctly today. Is it fixed now? And now it's showing correctly. Okay. There we go. The Maya Chloe goal. Okay. Okay, so this is a draw. That's crazy. What a defense by black. So if they run to this pawn, they lose to this. But if they just stay on the C file, when the white king goes up this way, then they can run across under. So, okay, so back up. Okay, so we can't win from here. So instead, on move 5, we have to play here? The point of this subtle knight maneuver is that this move, you've got this. I think I did this subtle knight maneuver in the other position, right? Yeah, that whole line was wrong for white. King back. Knight check. King here. Knight f7, exclam. The same basic principle. The intrusion of the black king via this square is prevented. If king here, check. King, queen 4. King takes pawn. The knight's holding this, and this king can follow that king. Oh, man. So his way was one step easier. Hang on. And if the king went this way, then you just come here and here. Oh, man, his way was easier than what I found. But was what I found good or bad? That's what I want to know. Anyway. Okay, so I played knight c5 here, knight b7. It's very close to my way, Breams. It was definitely a step like shorter and more elegant, but I just need to know if my way works or not. All right, come on, chess.com computer. Hopefully you can see through a knight endgame like this. Here. Check. Anything wrong with this move? Here. Here. Top move is king e6, which I played, knight h6. Top defense is king e5, which I played, and now king h. Whoops, not that move over there. King h4 was my move. f4 plus 8-9. Yeah, this is all winning. Woo! What would Jesse say about that? Taste my knight? Something like that. Knight to h6? Hello, knight h6. Hello, knight h6. Wow. All right. That's awesome. Knight h6 asking some questions, you know, like, can we keep going? Another 5 files to the east, please. Dang. Okay, so now okay. So his variation was king f4, h4, and then the knight move. This pawn can't go because the king will catch it. So then he has here. No, I don't think he took it. Right, it's the subtle maneuver. It was the only route the knight could take. As far as I could tell. It was the only way to get the knight out of this like weird corner and do anything else with it. Knight here. Okay, so then here, check, here, knight here. Okay, this position. Now he says this position here is actually more interesting if it's white's move than if it's black's move. So now he switches whose move it is in order to study this position. Okay. Now, knight here no longer wins. Because oh, sorry. The black king's here. Now it's white's move. Right, so before when it was black's move here, this pawn was zugzwanged, so we would catch it. This king can't go to the mine square. And if the king comes forward, then we get the check and then we take. Okay, so he's saying it's more interesting if it's white's move. Now, white can't win with knight g5 because of king here. And the knight can't immediately move here like it needs to, right? So, king there. King goes this way. Exclam from this pawn, throwing itself away. King here, king here. God, this is like... These moves are from another planet. If white's king goes to win the queen-knight pawn, the black king returns to the king side. If white retreats his king from the center, like in this direction or in this direction, then black can go take this. Just a step too far away. So the white king can't go to the F file without allowing this, as long as black's 2 steps away, and can't go to this pawn without allowing this. Positional draw. All right, so we're here, white's move, and Drit suggests this king f3 move, right? Like asking black what they want to do. It seems like a good move, Drit. That matches like my instincts for what like a winning move might look like. I'm not sure what the problem would be with this move. Like, if anything, you would think it would be this. Chasing this knight. If it checks, the king comes back here, and your king doesn't have time to take any of these pawns yet. So here you might have to use my my maneuver of knight h6. That does freeze this king because of knight f5, king c4, knight d6. So now the king's frozen at the moment. Maybe he waits here. The way I had won the game was king h4 takes h5 in such a position. So we'd like to play something like king h3 here for white. Maybe there's not like an easy next move for white here, Drit. Maybe there is. Maybe there's another alternative win. King e3, king g2. On king g2, f4 seems fine, right? So I don't expect king g2, f4. Hey, Francesco. So king e3 maybe could make sense. Actually, king e3, h3. I think white wins here. I think white's winning, Driven. Pretty much. Nize, you preferred it when Jesse suffered instead of you, right? Yeah. Everybody's in withdrawal, it seems. Except me, I'm just so happy for Jesse. He'll be back soon with something else. Yeah, king f3 just makes sense. I agree. I mean, it's not like I look at all of this in advanced strip, man. I'm not making that kind of effort right now. So king f3, king e6, knight h6, king e5, king e3, h3, king f3. He's preparing his plans, Pleafers. They'll be revealed in a day or two. That's a problem. Previously, this pawn was more like here. And so we could come up to like f4 in a position like this. And if h4, we could play knight f5, h3, knight g3, and win. Now black has this move. So they can hold like this here, 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 here. Yeah, I mean, it's ideal for your improvement to be playing more than you're studying Playfirst. But if you're having fun, I mean, it's always good to sustain your happiness and your love of the game, right? But like ideally, you'd be playing like 90% of the time if you were just like a machine trying to maximize your improvement. Given where you are right now, you would spend like 90% of your time just just cranking games out. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure on this move here. King f3. That's right, race 2 GM. Okay, let's see his like suggested solution. We can always come back and try king f3 some more. He says knight to king 5, pawn to rook 6. Jeez, I don't know what we do now. What was the idea of knight e5 exclam? Oh, let me change that classical command. Sorry. So many things to do. I'm sorry, folks. I cannot keep up with everything. Knight f3 seems like the only possible move. I just don't see how it's going to work out. Hang on, hang on, hang on. Yeah. You guys know how to break this position? It would be folly, but I don't think white was getting to the f5 pawn in time in that position, if I remember correctly. Is that this position here? So if you leave the knight hanging, the black king gets to this pawn before you can take it. Well, I'll save you the time, Banana and the boys, too. I am not the best streamer. You can move on. In fact, I can even narrow it down for you and save you a ton of time. It's Magnus Carlsen. So go challenge Maskinissen. Although I should also say, you're probably not strong enough to even judge who's the best. Like when you play against Firouzja, Hikaru, and Magnus in Blitz, after they trounce you dizzy, I don't think you'll really be able to judge which of them was better than the other. Right? I mean, they'll each 100-0 you while chatting about what they ate for lunch. And it'll be very hard for you to really provide a clear metric for which of them was better. All right, any way to win this? Can this knight hold off the king and both pawns from here? Can we try this kind of a thing? Nope, it's a draw. Well, I tried. Nice one, B. Corboreal. Okay, guys, I don't know how to win this position. I'm gonna read what happens in the game. Okay, knight f3 exclam, king bishop 5, king g3 exclam, the turning point. What? What? Try and sack a queen. That doesn't work in endgame studies. The turning point, the white king turns back, heads to the h file and says, whatever. Whatever. I wasn't even trying to win this game, you know? The queen side's all just a troll. What the heck? Okay, black plays king b3. Oh man, white just needed these pawns split so the king could deal with them, and it doesn't matter how many times the black king tries to chase the knight. It's not Zugzwang, I don't think, Laurent, because it's not Zugzwang because it's more of like a race here, right? Like white has a threat and like another threat. If the black pawn were back on h5, this would not work at all, this idea. Jeez. Okay, and so hang on. So they go here, 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 here. They keep going, but I know this position's a win. I don't think we need to study it. This is something that we know. Once we realize this idea. And he says the win is not at all difficult, and I agree. Okay. That's right, Nize. Sorry, I don't know if I should call you Nize or Nize or Nize or so forth. But yes, you're absolutely right. Either way, that Nizite is headed to a6. Now let us turn to the other possible ending. Just Niz, yeah. Niz is good. All right, so now we're going to reset this to a different position. Black gets this pawn back. And this one, and this one. That's a lot of pawns for black. Oh, but in the game, white took this way, and black had split pawns. Okay. So, from the first ending, we already know that that if the king heads this way, trying to go here, then this move here leads to a Zugzwang. The pawns are different than before, but the white king can still freeze them, but not capture them. So it's a little similar to with the pawn on f5, but a little bit different. We'll see what differences come up. The attempt to exploit the kingside passed pawns also ends in failure in the majority of cases. For example, king here, munch here, probably this move. Another move from the knight, king here, here, check, here. White wins. That was nice. Okay, so that leaves from the starting position. That leaves from the starting position, king here, knight takes g5. King here. And now we've got basically the same position as before with the pawn on f5 on g5. Right? All right, king here, knight here, king here. Will we see the same subtle maneuver? Knight b7, exclam. Because it's the only way for this piece to extricate itself and do anything. It always has to be in contact with these squares. So on a6, it had c7. If you want to get it somewhere else, you have to now use this. So you rotate through here and here. Is it better for us that this pawn's on g5 now instead of f5? I think be mad at the game. Oh, sorry, Thali. I think, Tali, it's going to be exactly as good or bad. White's still going to win. The details are just going to be a little different. We're going to learn how to fight against these two pawns instead of those two pawns, but the balance is still going to be the same, that white's going to be able to win here. We'll just learn one or two different tactics, basically, right? We're learning different little tactics that you can use in these endgames. King here. Just chilling on your back rank. Pawn here. Okay, so now, with these, there's more of a threat for the king to come over and fight with them against us, right? So, I guess that's one difference here. Knight back here. Now that the pawns have been weakened, the knight retraces its steps. What? Okay, and it says that in this position, if black didn't disturb these pawns and came back, we would come here, which attacks this pawn, right? And yeah, the rest of what it says doesn't make any sense. Anyway. Okay, so g4, knight back to b7. King here. King here. These pawns are still frozen, but we take some squares from this king. Probably going to have to head back here. All right. That's a lot of work, Banana. Okay, other line before I turn. Check. Here, king here. If this pawn moves, we're close enough to check and take, and when he comes here... Oh no, check, I mean just wins if he comes here because of this pawn. And the king can still get back. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so here white to play. Knight here. H5. I mean, this seems like an easy win. We check, we take. The king goes here and here. We come back, he takes here, we go knight c6, right? And lock it in with our king covering the h-pawn. Oh, white did something else. Check here, takes. King takes, king takes. Yeah, that's pretty simple. Black played here. So now white can check, I guess. And just here, done. Okay, that's easy enough, but let's just check if this variation also works here. Seems pretty clear, right? We've seen this before. Why is this position a win? When black goes to attack the knight, it takes a lot of moves to go attack the knight. The knight goes to b8 to a6. And then if you go attack the knight on a6, it goes to c5. Then it takes you like 3 more moves to come back to c4 with the king. And when you do, the knight just goes back to a6. and he runs you around that mulberry bush. Meanwhile, this king can take the pawn just straightforwardly and then head back over to the queen side eventually. All right, so that concludes the study of those set of positions with the knight delicately defending these pawns while helping the king to beat 2 pawns on the king side, which otherwise F and H or G and H, either way, the king can't beat those pawns by themselves. So the knight has to really outmaneuver this whole board. Yeah, it is a thematic position to know Super Baguette. It was way, way, way earlier in the book. These kind of positions that like the king can't force a draw against the knight because the knight moves less times than the king. The king goes and attacks the knight, then it goes and attacks the pawn, then it goes and attacks the knight, then it goes and attacks the pawn. And the knight always takes 2 moves to hop away and then come back to defend the pawn, and the king takes 3 or 4 moves to go back and forth between attacking them. Is there a VOD? There's some old videos of this, Daxy, but I don't think they're online anymore. Okay, next position. Position 101. All right, it's black's move here. Fisher Seb, I've never read a book online, so I don't really know. So I've only ever read books in person like this. I think chess books are somewhat being replaced by like ebooks, but maybe not for everybody. I've got nothing against reading a book in theory on a screen. I just already spend a lot of time looking at a screen, so it's nice to mix in different kinds of activities. I'm definitely not an anti-screen type of person. I'm a so much screen that I have to limit it sometimes person. Just jam a USB into your ear, yes. Black paves the way for a passed pawn by demolishing white's king-rook pawn. You guys can see this pawn is very, very easy to take out and creates a passed pawn. So somebody wanted to move the knight to head this way. Check. Which way, folks? Which way with the king? I think it's time for a stretch and a repositioning. Folly says king e7 for sure. King e7 is correct, yeah. We can't go this way, actually, because of this, probably. And then even if you say, like, uh-oh, let's keep him out, it's just too late. I'm guessing. That seems like a problem. Definitely in the book, it says black played king e7. This is a game of checkovers. Checkover was black in this game. All right, white just throws away this pawn. If king here, it stirs up some interesting variations. Knight f4 asks Chess Latte. Good question. Good question, Latte. Let's go look at that. Let's go look at that too. King c7, king e6, knight check, king here, here, right? Very, very good question. Boom, 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 la da da da, and an easy win for black. So, is there anything wrong with king c7? I mean, if this move just loses so bad to knight to h5. Huh. Latte, I think you're right. This looks just fine too. All right, I'll just play through his variations. Maybe it's just like one example. Maybe it's not hard to win. I mean, this example is not very long, the variation given either. So he says that king c4 stirs up some interesting variations. Here. If takes, here, king takes, there is a problem. If takes, here, pawn takes, g7 is a problem. So knight takes. Pawn here. Oh, knight here, pawn here, knight takes, and knight check. Oh, sorry. The variation ends there. Alternative king here. Okay, hang on. Let's see if we can figure this out. If we take king here, here, here. It's too late. Come back now. Where's this? Oh! Now you can go here. Yep. Check and take. And in this position here, I can tell you that if here, 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 check and takes. Whereas in this position here, if you take here, then this is a problem. And if you don't play this, but play knight takes, then this is also a problem. You can't stop this anymore. Okay, yeah, that's the variation he gives. There's another one, knight here. Ooh, now he's not on that check. Now we have to figure it all out again in this position. Oh, you're right, Niz. You're right. King here now, pawn here. I think now we can take again. Oh, that's not what was played. Pawn takes here, knight here, pawn here, king here. And win like so. Yeah, because when the king comes over, you can take and get over here. So you actually end up losing this pawn. Yeah, it can be scary here. I was planning to keep taking more pawns, and then on check here, here to play this. That's what I'd planned, Fisher. I am a pawn grubber at times. That is a piece of my personality. If white promotes to knight, black wins very easily. Not a problem, yeah. We can see if white had any other sneaky moves here that would be a problem, like here, here, here. Check. That doesn't seem like it should be a problem. Okay, that seems to be all the variations. So king e7. Pawn here to distract him. King here, here, king takes here. And black won. Very chess latte variation at the end there from Averbach. All right. Next one. Oh, now this is a pawn structure. I think this is from a real game as well. Wow. Quite the structure. All right. White to play. All right, let's see what you guys think of this position. Is white winning, drawing, or what's going on? I have bad news, folks. This is a long example. It also doesn't say if it's a win or a draw, so that's a good one to ask about because I don't know the answer. My face won't tell you what you should predict. Grab a little speculatius. Wait. All right, you guys think white's winning? Okay. First, I'll read to you what he says. What they say. Averbach and checkover. Black only garnered 2 pawns for the piece, but his strong defended passed pawn on f3 or king bishop 6 restricts white's mobility. Were the black queen knight pawn on queen knight 4 on b5, white normally would have no means for strengthening his position and the game would end in a draw. For example, imagine this black pawn is here. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. Knight here, pawn here. King here, king here. King here, king here. And the white king cannot break through to get to this pawn here. Black can keep the white king at bay. What if we tried to transfer this knight to g4? Yuri. My instinct is that knight f2 is still winning for white. So let's see. You could play h5, I suppose. But there's not king moves anymore on this move. You can go here, here. Oh, now I'll go back and eat the h-pawn with my king. So black has to just wait. Honestly, even here, if black creates a route, if I'm not fast enough, I can just head back and go eat the h-pawn. I think we found another error, folks. The second one in the book. Yes! No, we have to investigate more to know. All right. So the white king cannot break through to the black queen bishop pawn. Did I get it right? Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. Okay, so we tried king e6 here for black. We could try this move. I'll go in. Race, yeah. Race, yeah. Uh-oh. I feel like I'm in trouble now. I guess this is the furthest I can run. Now we could run the h-pawn, or we could go here and take this. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this is faster here. 2, here. Oh! Rough, forcing the queen trade, and then white mops up with king e4. TBA, black didn't push b7, b5. I was changing the position for comparison. He said if the black pawn were on b5, it would be a draw. But I do not believe it. All right, I've tried king g6 and king e6 here. The only legal move left is h5. Now for white, I just mark time with knight h3, I guess. Now if black moves the pawn, they lose. If they move the king this way, they lose. So the only move is here. Now I come here, taking the space from this poor king. Now they're left with pushing the pawn, or like retreating with their king. If they push the pawn, I just come back over here, clean it up, and then head back this way. Oh, we're definitely winning. We're definitely winning this for white. Are you guys confident? I don't know if I should make this a prediction instead of a poll, let you guys gamble your points on it. I'm not a professional bookie. I don't really know how to run the prediction things. So I'll just go with the poll, which is what I know how to do. We're gonna use the computer engine to find out if I was right or wrong in a second. I'm confident in my analysis, so I'm done checking it myself. I'm done human checking it. I've only caught him out once before. We're on page 42. If the computer's wrong, we'll just say it doesn't know endgames. I'm saying that white can win here. Averbach said it's a draw. Technically, he said it was a draw in this position here, and I'm playing knight f2 to try to win. Okay, the poll is a 2-1 in favor of me. All right, guys, this is going to hide the H file, but we're going to turn on the chess.com computer's evaluation. Yes! +9, Yuri! +9. I shouldn't be like computer checking it, but I just thought it'd be fun to know who was right and who was wrong. I already sort of knew, but... So white is winning here. Yeah, you just go back and forth with the knight until black either runs the h-pawn down the board because they are out of tempi and you take it, or their king steps aside in some direction and you make progress. The tricky part is that if the king goes this way, I needed this move to make progress, to trick this pawn forward. I guess here black could have not moved the pawn, but I took this square from the king, so that's how I make progress with my king. If it ever goes here, I can take with check and head back. All right. Anyway, be that as it may, we're going to go back to this position here, the original one, and it is white to play. and see the analysis here. In the diagram position, the latent march of his queen knight pawn encourages white's chances. The game proceeded here, exclam. If black takes twice, we can take this pawn with check with our knight and then just go wherever with it. So black's going to trade off that pawn, of course, yeah. And then he plays king e7. Yeah, owie. Owie. Ooey. Yeah, owie. This is just chess.com's analysis board. And here's like a link to where I'm doing whatever. First in a tournament. Nice, Moosey. Okay. So here, and it says king e7 is a concession. So what it says white's threatening to play pawn here and then play knight takes pawn check. And if pawn takes knight c6 and white queen's really fast. So that's the threat, is white just getting so much space that they can crack the pawn structure. This is called, I'll show you guys. If the king comes back here to keep white's king at bay, this is called a breakthrough, technically. For those of you who are newer to endgame speak, it's called a breakthrough when you don't have like a passed pawn. All your pawns are blocked by pawns. But some kind of a sacrifice like this is called a breakthrough. It creates like a passed pawn and then a queen out of nowhere. You're more likely to have breakthroughs if you've got a lot of space. Your pawns have to be further down the board than the opponents usually to have a breakthrough. Okay, incidentally, black fares no better with pawn takes pawn. Well, yeah, no kidding. That looks terrible. Knight takes check. King here. Now our knight just chills here, stopping this passed pawn. The sooner you stop the pawn, the more freedom you have to maneuver with your knight at some point. And now we can get this pawn going and then clean up. Probably. Let's just see how it goes. Here, here. If this pawn advances, we just step up and then take it. So now the king has to just deal with the pawns. Maneuver through here. This pawn can't yet move because we'll take it. King can't take the pawn because we queen. That's why it's important that we queen faster than the opponent. King here. Knight switches to here, attacking all these pawns. This gives this pawn time to run, but we'll be able to take this and then get back and stop it before it gets all the way. So that is why it was important to freeze this pawn as far up the board as possible, or as early as possible, right? Here, here. I don't know why this move is played. It doesn't really show us anything. Let's just go with this. This, 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 right? You guys can see why that's a win. Okay, so in the game, we get king e7 here. Now this king is tied to the box of this pawn. So the king is now stuck over here. So now this knight just has to go bother this pawn every now and then. Get it to advance up the board to where it will die. Knight to rook 5. King here. No, no, no. You got to stop knight here. More accurate. Okay, was king here. Even so, knight here. King here, knight here. Oh, we tie the king to that pawn and then go over and win this one. And Yeah, that makes sense as well. Race to GM, yeah. So here, basically, the end just looks like boom, here, boom, here. Oh, sorry. Now I won't be able to take it when it comes here. Hang on. Here, here, here. And then just go eat it. Right? Just attack it a couple times with the knight so it weakens itself. All right, and that's the whole thing, pretty much. Oh, hang on, that's not what happened. Okay, here, here, king, queen, one. Knight here, here. Knight here, here. I feel like this is all very clear to me now. White has increased his material advantage to where a win becomes mechanical. This knight can always catch the pawn, and then the king would go back and eat it if it moves to where it's not defended. Also, you can always like waste a tempo with the knight, and then the king has to step aside for you. So, king. Oh, sorry, he played here. All right, and black resigned. White swings the king. Normally this would be a stalemate. The king, the pawn has to move here, and then you would head back this way. In this endgame, White's ploy required above all else the neutralization of Black's passed pawns. In fact, the creation of a passed pawn for White themselves never even came into mention. In multiple pawn endgames, an exchange of all pawns jeopardizes the side with the extra piece. How do you win after you even collect f2? Okay, after you collect f2, you could, for example, bring your king back up to f4 and then play knight g3, knight takes e4, and take 2 pawns for your knight. All right, next position. White to play. This is a composition of V brawn, it looks like. Black, a knight down threatens king here, then takes the pawn, then here and here, then takes that pawn. Okay, yeah. Hello, fried chicken. It would seem that white could counter with here, 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 taking away that square. But after this pawn goes, it would be a draw. I'm trying to solve it in my head. Yeah, white can draw this kind of position by trading the knight for the f-pawn. Okay, so king a2 to b3 to c4 doesn't work for white. Even if black takes that pawn, it's a draw race to GM because white draws the king versus king and pawn position. The king falls back, black takes on e6, white plays king e4 with the opposition and draws. Oh yeah, you figured it out yourself. Okay, I propose this idea here, here, here. Setting up the kind of thing we've seen a little bit before with a knight defending a pawn from there. So now there's no f-pawn running. Here, 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 here. Defending it, and our king's covering this, and then we come up and then start collecting these with the knight. And if we go e6 here, we go knight takes king here. Hang on, wait, these positions are draws, aren't they? No, because your knight can head here. And if the king comes back this way, here, here. Whew. I wasn't sure about that one for a second. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, hello?
Hello, this is Debbie from the Hills Marketplace.
And if the king had gone this way, then I guess simpler I would go here. Why the pawn didn't take here? Because white would get a queen. Pawn knight 5? Oh no, wrong page. Victory calls for e6 exclam. All right. e6 exclam. Yes, Falk. This book was written before computers, much less table bases. If pawn here, knight takes exclam, king here. Knight here, king takes pawn, king here. Nice. So far, so good. King here, knight here, etc. He didn't go here, huh? So this would go here, 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 taking away the root, and then he's too slow. That's easier than what I did. Sometimes these positions are draws. Sometimes like you get frozen, like almost like what happened to me. Sometimes you get frozen with your king defending the knight and your king can't get through and you can't ever move the knight. Sometimes these are draws. So that was risky of me. If white played king here in this position, Giant Slalom's asking, then this move. Kicking the knight, right? And if the knight moves, black can take here, you know, here, here. So the knight has to head somewhere where it could do this, like here. That's still winning for white. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Giant Slalom. After king d4, I think you can also win with king c2. It's not as exciting as the other line, but it's perfectly clear. The king can come here, kick your knight. It can only take one pawn. You can defend the other one. So yeah, totally fine idea to just bring the king up. You're right, Giant. Okay, so e6, black took it. Here, king here. What? He's going to try and keep us on the edge? I don't understand. This should just be a win no matter what, right? Okay, this is trickier than I thought. Why is all this happening? Okay, so we can threaten knight takes pawn, and when the king comes here to have this square, we can go here, here, and then our knight's on the far side from their king. Versus if we'd done this on the queen side. They're making it even fancier. They're saying that here it's got to be king h2 exclam. I think I'm losing my trust in Averbach slightly. I mean, it's only one mistake every 20 million pages, but I'm having a hard time believing that king g4 doesn't win here. That it doesn't like matter, right? Here, 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 here. Now white, takes the opposition, advances another file. It's pretty simple, right? Here and then flanking him, yeah. But what would possibly be wrong with just king g2 here? Howdy, Propeshka, welcome. Francesco, thank you for bringing Niz into the dojo here. Welcome, Baguette. À la prochaine. Bonne nuit, I guess. The point is that king f4, knight d7, king g4, and you get tsuged, and you still need to win a tempo at some point here, huh? Wow. Wow. That's awesome, Race to GM. Thanks for explaining that one to me. I was just feeling kind of confused here for a second. I was just feeling confused. So how could we get past this king? We could run to the other side. But no, we need that sort of like not opposition here. We have to go like this. Because now our knight's going to have to come back here. Okay, yeah, so when we do the wrong way... Sorry, folks, this is going to be like a long thing, but... But let's just see what happens if we run all the way to the other side and then try and... do this. We're threatening to take, right? Yeah, we are taking. I mean, there's no way around it for black. Here, 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 threatening e6. Here to stop it. If we take, it's a blunder. But now we just defend our pawn from like g6 or something, right? Actually, from here. Cut off that square. Why didn't I just play knight c5 here? Yeah, I guess that would do the same thing as knight f8, right? The king will move, we'll take the pawn. No reason not to. No reason not to, owie. Be just as good. Clearly, let me see. Yeah, I think it turns out that it doesn't matter, but it's still good to know that your move is winning, right? That's what we all want to know. Like every time I have a different variation than Averbach, I just want somebody to tell me, like, your move is also good, David. It amounts to the same thing, David. Okay. That might make the book super, super long, Samuel. Yeah, it's tough. Did I read the whole set? No, Steve. This is the first one I'm reading, Steve. But I am going to do the Queen Endgames as well. My king and pawn ending is in fine shape. My rook and pawn ending, I'm satisfied with. Bishop ending's fine. I mean, they could be improved. I'm not like a super GM of them, but I sort of like, I've got some vague concept what's going on in the bishop endgames. And knight versus bishop or bishop versus knight is like reasonably okay too. But my knight endgame and my queen endgame, that's where it's just like, 1,000 points behind the curve. So after I work through this book, which is going to take another year and a half, I will move on to the Queen Endgame book. Yes, Race to GM. If you don't know anything about endgames, period, you should definitely start with King and Pawn endings. That makes the most sense. Yeah. Okay. This is going to be our last position, I think. Last position for today. 1v1 me, bro. So aggro, Drit. So aggro, man. Never knew you had it in you. All right, number 104 is white to play. Okay. So let's try and solve this one since it's our last position. We'll see if we can solve it. And then we'll be good. And if we don't solve it, we'll also be good. Whatever. All right. You can start thinking. Clearly white should be winning, right? I mean, it's knight and 2 pawns against 2 pawns. So it should be winning. Man, just 1 or 2 hours of really trying is exhausting. I can see why Falk does that tomato method, where he takes a little 5-minute break every now and then. I get one of these thin little wafers per hour. Speaking of which, I can't believe they called these speculatius. Like, if you took a picture of it, it would look like a picture of a speculatius, but... All right, let's solve this last one here. Okay. Flachspüler, if I can get my hands on an actual German cookie, I will eat it any time of the year. Especially since at Christmas this year, I got this many Lebkuchen. Big old zero. Nothing. Absolute zilch. Thank you, COVID. Okay, so the problem is, I think, with Drit's variation, that if the king just runs here, the black king gets to take the pawn and get to f5 in time. So let me show what I've calculated. We'll see if it's right once we play it on the board. And I believe that playing g5 for white will not save any tempi for white. I guess I could do this idea. But it'll still be a draw. We also can't come over like here and then cover on the 4th rank off of the king. So what on earth are we trying to do here? So I'm actually calculating knight e4 check, folks. That's what's clicking back here right now for anybody wondering. Looking at knight e4. If king takes g4, knight d6, white wins. So now we have to calculate knight e4, king f4. Knight d6, king e5, knight f7 check, king f6. That doesn't work. That's the problem with that, is that it doesn't work. Okay. Knight e4 didn't work. I'll just show you guys what I think didn't work. Was here, 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 here. And then the king just comes to g5. All right, I need another candidate move, folks. Something else to calculate. Knight d3 after king f3 in the line where we run. This one here, right? Knight d3 immediately is another suggestion. Okay. Look at that next. Okay, the danger here for white is that black's plan is king f5, f6, right? So, like if we come here, 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 last pawn gets traded. Wait, why is this so hard? We've got a knight and 2 pawns against 2 pawns. Okay, knight d3 immediately was the suggestion. So here the idea would be like king takes. I think you guys were going to keep moving the knight probably to go to this square here. I might be wrong, but I think that's the idea of the knight d3 immediately crew. I mean, if black didn't have the f-pawn, we know this is a win. And the f-pawn doesn't seem to be helping black, right? If they play here, we can just take it. Oh, wait, hang on. Whew, stopped this move. Okay, just checking. Just checking. Oh, raise to GM. That's the plan. White wins anyway. Ah. Nice. Nice. Okay, I believe that you guys could be winning here. So knight d3. What else can the opponent do? Oh, maybe f6 right away here, folks? But you just defend this pawn from behind. White wins here. The king covers the pawn. And if black played king here, white would do this and cover it. Um, 13 Zeno, there was a moment where white could have also won with knight takes e4 check. Yeah. I just did a different variation that occurred to me first. I ended too early, Alexa. Dang. So my variation was just wrong. Which means in this position, white would have to play knight takes e4, but that also means that in this position, black should play king g5 first. And it's a draw because the king gets control of here. Ooh la la. It's taking us a long time to find the truth. But this here's a draw. I mean, black can play king g5 immediately, so then we don't have to worry about knight h3 or knight e4 or anything. I'm still working on it, Francesca. I'm still working on it. So the king can go here, freezing the knight, and then the white king just can't deal with king f4 and the e-pawn push. We can't putsy, no, because here, right? And it's just too late. The king's coming to g5 immediately with our knight on d3. All right, so thank you, Oso Plays Chess, for welcoming Trini Power Up to the dojo. Knights hurt the brain. That's right, Corporeal, me too. f6, miracle draw right here. Should we just read the answer? No, we were going to solve this one, right? All right, all the way back to the beginning. Knight d3, f6 is a miracle draw. Knight d3, f6. But what other candidate moves do we have, folks? I'm pretty much out of moves. I mean, knight h3, knight h1. Why would we play any of these moves? I'm going to look up the answer, I think. Jeez, no, come on. Come on, David. Oh, my Lord. I'm going to get it, actually. I'm going to get it. I'm about to get it. All right, folks. So I think we got to make one move with the king. And we've tried king c4, king f3, knight d5, knight d3, right? And then we had king g4. And here we just like fumbled it. We came here, and got f6, right? But we just need to send the knight to d7 in these kind of positions, right? Knight here, king here, here. That's it. That's all there is to it. When the king goes to the g pawn, you need to rush your knight to d7 while the king's not attacking your e5 pawn. Simple enough. Simple enough. So here we just go knight d3. King e4. Now we still need a brilliant move here to work it all out. Come on. Come on, Bruce. Solve it, you moron. Come on. Oh. Yes. G5. Here, 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 and it's too late to play f6 because we have check to the miserable king. And if he doesn't go for f6, of course, you just put the knight on d7, and we know that story. The way you solve this is you try your candidate moves, and then if they fail, you look at the solution. Right, playing through every move is basically like cheating because you could never do that in the board. So you'd have no reason to think there was a way. Yeah, but the truth is, race to GM. So yes, if for some people, if they saw this in a book, they know there's a win. If they saw this in a game, they'd just be like, oh, well, there's no way to win. But I can tell you, race to GM, that if I had this position in a tournament and I had time on my clock, you would never see me like give up and accept that it's a draw. My approach is to assume that there's some way to win the position and that I'm just, you know, a horrible piece of trash if I can't find it. And I'm going to sit there and stare at the board until I find it. So I would actually use nearly elimination, basically, during a tournament if this were my position. So, yeah. So I think the answer to this position is you have to start with king b3. Then when the king comes here, we have to play knight d3 check in that position. If king takes g4, then knight c5 to d7 wins. If king here, king here. Something like that, right? And if king here, 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 whatever, we have g5 as needed. As Pudsey is asking, if we did this variation here without knight d3 at this point, then instead of playing king here, black could take this, and then we have to figure out how to win this position, which is very unclear that we can, right? In fact, I don't think we can. I think it's just a draw. So the correct answer to this puzzle, which only has one way, and whether we got this by elimination or what, is going to be king b3, king here, now knight check. That's going to be the correct answer. So promote knight d3 check, here, here, and win. Okay. So, answer in the book. White misfired. Oh, it's a tragic comedy. White misfired with one knight to d3 and eventually drew after f6 exclam. Pawn takes, king takes, knight bishop 2, king to g5 important. King, and then black drew with king here and pushing the pawn. one of the trap lines that we found. Gavlinskowski evinced that king to knight 4. The king. Oh, sorry guys, I had the king on the wrong square. It's on a4 in the game. So I didn't even have the right position. But anyway, he showed that king here. Whatever, we'll do it with our king here. I think it doesn't matter. King here. Knight check. And if king takes pawn, then knight to here wins. And if on the first move, f5, which we didn't even look at, that then you can take here and defend your knight. All right. That was like a very, very, very short position, and it took us 20 minutes. Took us 20 minutes for like a 2-paragraph, 3-variation puzzle. That was tough. That was a little bit humbling. It's because I was already pretty tired, and many of you as well. Not that winners make excuses, but it's definitely true that I have reached a point of some fatigue here. And micro, yeah, with tragic comedy, I'm referring to Dvoretsky, although I'm not reading Dvoretsky right now. I am just, it's just something that's in me from before. With plenty of time on the clock, we would have gotten it. That's right, 13 Zeno. And we did do better than whoever the white player was. A favorite of Jesse's, Aaron Nimzovich. Favorite of mine, too. So, all right. All right. It was good work, folks. Kosti's going to be on in 10 minutes, but he told me to fire off a raid if I was done, and I am done. I think he's fine with me firing off a raid. You guys can always come back when he starts if you want to. Or maybe we'll find somebody better than Kostya finally. Right? I could play a couple bullet games. Ugh. Puke. I could play one blitz game. But no, I've got... the reason I'm leaving is not because I'm exhausted, because I've got a few other things I got to do here. Let's see. We'll see what Kostya says. All right, he says it's fine to raid. So there'll be no bullet. Okay. I'm not an addict. I'm not a chess addict, right? I'm this reasonable... Oh, shoot. Whoa, 1 minute? Okay, hang on. Thanks for the pawn. Thanks for the pawn, dude. What on earth was that move? I didn't see it coming. All right, guys. That guy was super fast. In real chess, surely I would have won the game after winning that a7 pawn. I guess he figured he had a limited number of moves he could play because he didn't want to like move off of the a file and let me push my a pawn. So I guess that's why he was playing rook a1, rook a2 a bunch. Anyway, I'm not an addict. Let's go see what's going on out here. Have a great afternoon, folks. Kosti will be on again soon. I'll be on tonight after the kids are in bed. And you're all wonderful people. Tomorrow morning we'll have a tournament. Friday we'll have a tournament. Saturday we'll have classical commentary. Sunday we'll have a tournament. We'll have tournaments every morning for the next 4 days after this. Take care.